There's a fairly simple part I missed in my train. Most of them are more complicated than this one, but I'm going to go ahead and model this up to show you the workflow. If you're an experienced SolidWorks user, this will probably be boring. This particular print happens to be drawn in millimeters. Most of this print set is in inches. It's a British design, but before they adopted the metric standard, it was drawn over in France, so maybe they adopted it sooner, but this one print is actually in millimeters. So I'm going to go hit Control N, start a new, select my millimeter template, and away we go. Because I can't really jump back and forth between screens on my recording software, and to avoid needing to do that, I'm going to start out with this top view sketch. I'm just going to insert the drawing that I'm copying this from. Go to Tool, Sketch Tools, Insert Sketch Picture. Normally I'd only insert a sketch picture if I were going to be scaling from it. The print sets I have are TIFF files, and that's not supported, and it also exists on a very large and complicated print with other drawings, so I went ahead and opened it and saved off a cropped image as a JPEG, which is supported. I'm going to scale it about right there and place it about here. Now we have that to look at as I'm doing up my sketch. So here's the part we're going to model. I'm going to do it with basically two sketches, just like we got two views of the drawing. I'm going to put my origin at the center here. You can see we've got a center line of 180 from here to the beginning of what's a slot shape, but an external shape. And then that's 180. So that's what I'm going to start with, is my horizontal center line. And I'm going to put a slot on the end of it. These two center lines are equal. I'm going to go ahead and make them equal. It also could have been two 180 dimensions. And now that I have that, just a little bit closer so we don't have to keep going back so far. There's a radius of 18. It's called out two ways. Nowadays this would be considered redundant, but the standards were different then. And then I'm going to come down and do this circle, 28. Now this line is presumably tangent, coming down at an angle, then making a 73 millimeter arc, and presumably tangent here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that and see that it's constrained to being tangent. Make sure there's an angle, mouse over that so it becomes a curve, and touch off here. Now you see we're tangent, but not here yet. So we're going to go ahead and pick these two curves and make them tangent. And this was 73. Now I could dimension the closest point here to the center line and call it 10.5, but I want to match the print. So I'm going to leave that alone for now. Because I already have this center line, I'm going to go ahead and mirror. It would be, in this case, almost as easy to just redraw it on the other side and then make it symmetric. But we have this center line, why not use it? And I believe there's a shortcut key to make sure dimension picks the closest point, but I just went ahead and threw in those reference points there. There we go, there's the external shape. Now a lot of people would extrude this piece, extrude that piece as a separate sketch later, come back into a third sketch for the holes. I'm just going to do it all right on this one sketch and use it multiple times. Making these perpendicular is one way to force that rectangle to be square. You could also pick the two sides and make them equal. About the same amount of mouse steps. Now this isn't a true slot, it's two holes. Presumably the same diameter. So I'm just going to draw two circles, make them equal. I'm not going to dimension it yet. I'm going to do that in a minute. And I'm going to come in here and draw this. This time you want to make sure that it doesn't automatically choose to be tangent, because we don't want a tangency. You can see it's constrained because it referenced off this point. We're not 12, we're 15. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And get rid of that. And make this 15. It doesn't know exactly where we're at, so I'm going to go ahead and make these two equal. And that'll force it to center. And then trim these. Now we can't go trimming our slot or we break it. And then we'd have to go in and set up a bunch of constraints, so I'm not going to do that. But I broke this before I dimensioned it, so I can come in here easily and put a radius of 10 instead of having to put a diameter of 20. It might be something that's keyed to equations and other things. I want it to match the print. There may be a reason they called it out this way instead of as a diameter. So I'm just going to leave it as a radius. Now you can choose it after the fact and choose to make it a radius even though it's a full circle. But 6 of one, half dozen of another. Now, I'm going to count this surface right here as the origin. So you see this is extruded 22 up. This thickness of 10 is presumably consistent, so this is 10 up. But the handle also is 6 down. Not handle really, but the arm of the crank is 6 down. And then I'm going to worry about cutting out this step later. So I'm going to come in here and pick this, 22. I'm going to go back in, pick that same sketch, extrude boss, this time pick here and change it to 10. Click the direction 2 box and enter 6. I'm going to go ahead and make this visible so we can keep seeing our sketch. No other reason. So 76 off the center, which is our origin point. You have a 100 millimeter radius, presumably matching over here, so that this should work out to 110. But we're going to stick to that 100, mirror it, and make this one equal, and it will automatically work out to 110. So let's get started with a front view, sketch. I want to come off the origin, not this point, because this isn't horizontal in the other view. It's got an angle to it. It does not come in tangent at the origin point. And it's close, so I want to zoom in and make sure I'm picking that origin point. Come down here, mouse over to get my arc, mouse over again to get an arc. Make sure this is collinear with that, and make sure this is tangent. This one's 100. And the distance off this center line, which I can use this line, because I was sure to line it up, is 76. Not worried about this for now. I'll go ahead and make those roughly even. I'm going to offset these two curves, 10. And I'm going to make these two equal. You can see now it's automatically set at 110s. I'm going to draw two lines. I shouldn't need to set up the tangencies. They're just horizontal lines. And extract that curve and do two corners. Now, extrude cut through all both. Go back in here and get rid of this picture that we don't need, so we're not taking up the room. And hide that sketch, and we're done. Now in the real world, this is going to be a cast part, and then they're going to come back and machine these. There may be a pre-hole there with extra meat on it, or it may just be solid and they machine those in and those be precise. But the outside's going to be a rough casting. And in the real world, nothing's ever truly sharp, so optionally we can choose to blend these off. I'm using a 0.5 millimeter. And that's going to look a little truer to life from what you're actually going to get from a casting. And we're done.